And we're live.
Thanks, Dirt. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another podcast of Masters of the Galaxy podcast. And I'm Brian Ozone along with Joshua Mead. What's up, Josh?
Howdy.
How's everything?
Doing all right.
Yeah, it's good. Um, so let's just jump into it, shall we? Since we're in the Christmas is about a couple days away, so let's get into something that I like to do that I started with my kids. Watching the Christmas special with them. At least try to get it in at least a good solid whole movie before Christmas or after
Right.
Christmas. And uh, just wondering, since I know you have kids, do you do the same with them?
Um, yeah. There's movies that we watch. That's one of them. Haven't
Okay.
watched in a long time because usually around this time of year I'm on the road up till Christmas.
Okay.
Um, but today, me and my son sat down. We watched about half of it before we got to uh, log in and start the show. The so what is your opinion of that particular cartoon? Like unedited, not just because you got kids, but your personal opinion.
Well, my personal, I liked it. I think it's a full on. It finally brings He-Man and Eternia and She-Ra and Etheria, everybody together all in one shot in the beginning scene and the final scene. They're all in Eternia celebrating Christmas, which is pretty cool. Um, it brings an Earth holiday to Eternia, and of course, Marlena, He-Man's mother, has ties to being an astronaut from Earth, and having all that bunched into one. It's a good feeling. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's not every property or out there can say that they actually have a character that is from where we live in Earth. So I like it a lot. I think it's something that as a kid growing up in the '80s, in the early '80s, a lot of the shows and cartoons back then had Christmas specials, not a holiday special or nothing at all. It was a Christmas special dedicated to Christmas and the Christmas spirit,
Right.
and that's what I miss. I think that actually I just saw the Loud House on Nickelodeon had their first Christmas special, but again, it's only a year old, if that, that show, and I think that's something that kids today are missing, um, because if even if their families aren't religious and they don't know much about the holiday, um, they can watch these shows and learn something about it. And I think it's something that we as kids growing up might take for granted because kids today don't have that.
Yeah.
And I'm not the most religious person out there at all. I'm far from it, but it's the saying "keep Christ in Christmas." I mean, it's something that people should know. If you're going to celebrate it, you should know what it's really about too.
Right. I mean, aside from the politics around it that everyone's pretty much aware of, I'm watching the show, and as usual, Orko's goofing off and being somewhere his little red butt doesn't need to be.
Right.
Blue, whatever. And he's ends up fouling up yet another man at arms issue, and then just barrel rolls into all kinds of shenanigans on all sides. What do you think about the music? For me, it's just one more reason to really hate uh Bo.
Yeah.
That song was
I mean,
aimed.
I, I mean, I could be wrong, but I do believe it was the same music from I Driella, The Return of Driella, or something like that. Driel. I'm sorry, The Return of Driel. I think it's the same
Yeah,
song where they danced over the Horn of Evil or something. I forget the name of it. I'm not.
yeah, it is. I
I'm
think you're right. Actually,
yeah.
it
I'm
does
not.
sound really familiar now that you mention it.
So I
I
mean,
haven't seen that episode in a while, so I might be wrong about that. But when you after you said that, I started thinking, yeah, actually, it does sound familiar.
so I can't all like blame Bo for the entire songwriting in there because I think it's a regurgitated song from
Yeah,
the Filmation series. But
it
I don't
just
know.
feels kind of lazy. Like it feels like they needed a song and somebody wrote it in 5 minutes flat.
Oh yeah, I mean the words are pretty, pretty good.
Bad,
Yeah, bad. They are bad. It's basically just let's get stuff that rhymes, and
pretty
it's
much slapping together. These kids are stupid. Let's make them buy our toys.
yeah. Well, it was
That's what it's like.
yeah, but again, like the cartoon. The other thing that we got was we got to see Skeletor, a good side of Skeletor.
Yeah,
We get to see him crack a smirk, smile, or whatever.
yeah.
Um, I liked it. I thought it worked when I was a kid, and it works as an adult. So
It was one of my favorite parts of the movie where he starts melting because that stupid puppy.
oh oh geez,
Skeletor.
yeah. What's his name? Radar? Is it Radar? I forget.
Don't remember. It was the puppy that that's over here. Like, really, dude?
Yeah,
Of all the things in the world, that's what makes you finally crack. Goodness gracious.
yeah, yeah. But uh, the other thing that totally I didn't like about the movie was the Manchines. To me, they were like a rip off, a complete rip off of the GoBots. For some reason, I don't know why, but
Why would you rip off the GoBot?
I don't know. To me, they just resemble the GoBots for some reason. I
I'll
don't
be
know
honest with you.
what.
Um, I I felt like they weren't even that far when they says, okay, it gives the impression of the way she says it that the reason they are evil is because they can transform. I know that's
Right.
not what she's saying, but the way she says it sounds like that's what she's saying. And then when they quote unquote transform, they put their feet together and bend over. That's it.
Well, that's
I'm like, really?
yeah.
That's a transformation?
Well,
Really?
that's why they resemble the GoBots to me because the GoBots were so badly made as a
They
toy.
were.
They would
Yeah.
just like that's it. Like you'd bend them over and maybe like flip their arms backwards and they were transformed. Not like
Well, they had like three good ones that transformed and like transformers. They had the like the jet plane guy that was in charge,
Leader One.
and yeah, and then they had the submarine guy, and they had the flying saucer guy that was kind of a rip off of the guy from Transformers anyway.
Right. Right.
And, um, but other than that, yeah, you're right. You know, you had like, oh, the guy turned into a gun. He just bent over. That was his
Yeah. Yeah. They were like a
yeah,
McDonald's
it was
Happy Meal.
really disappointing.
Yeah.
And when I watched this, I just felt like that. I just felt disappointed in it. It was like I hadn't seen it in years. I know my wife sits and watches it with my son during Christmas, but
That's cool.
and uh, and just okay, the Beast Monster, really? Okay, the name itself. Now the creature itself was drawn kind of well, and it looked really creepy. But really, the Beast Monster, you couldn't sit down for 5 more seconds, have a beer, and think of something better?
Wait, that's not from the movie, is it?
Yeah, the Beast Monster. They have to defeat the Beast Monster, or at least distract it, because apparently this
Oh,
thing is
that's what
so
we're missing.
dangerous it can
Yeah,
destroy
yeah.
She-Ra, who is, by all intents and purposes, just as badass as He-Man, and it can apparently beat her. So they have to distract it so that the mermaid girl can go and find this water crystal so that
Yeah.
they can teleport Orko back. And then Orko decides to kidnap children and bring them with him.
Yeah, I just forgot the name of that thing, but yeah, it's
Yeah, he
It's
called it the
Mermister.
pink
That's who.
monster.
I just forgot the name.
Yeah,
Um, I'm bad with all names actually. Uh,
I
but
am
yeah,
too.
but I
But
mean, overall, it was to me, like I said, it was great as a child. It was great as an adult. So to me, it works. It worked then. It works now. I mean, maybe as an outsider, it wouldn't work.
yeah,
It's
as
just
an
gonna,
outsider, there's no way it holds up.
yeah,
The only reason it holds up for us is because we love He-Man. That's it.
yeah, I could see that. I could
I'm just
definitely.
being brutally honest. I'm not trying to like run He-Man under the ground. Of course, it's just ouch. You know.
Yeah,
That's-
well, I mean, there's plenty of aspects of maybe like GI Joe that only diehards will get. There's,
yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, every property and of toy line, cartoon, or whatever,
yeah,
you're gonna have. I mean, you'll have your diehards that are gonna like it no matter what. And I mean, I consider
right.
myself a diehard, so
Well, there's people who play certain tabletop games that will buy whatever that company puts out, and they don't care. They'll pay whatever price the company puts out. It's the same deal. If you're that into a property, it doesn't matter what they do. Your mind
yeah,
won't allow you to dislike it. And I'm the same way with Doritos. That's why I'm fat.
yeah.
But um,
Well, I can't say that. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that get me aggravated, and
yeah,
maybe we can move on to that topic right now. Back about a couple of years ago, Mattel made for the classics line. They made the 2 packs with
yeah,
that was only exclusive to Toys R Us, and the first two that came out were pretty much no brainers. It was He-Man versus Superman,
Superman. Yeah,
and then it was Skeletor versus Lex Luthor. Now, Lex Luthor just going because you had, I would say, just because you had He-Man versus Superman and Skeletor versus Superman's bad guy, which is Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor wasn't in that DC Presents comic book of
right,
the first time that we ever got to see Masters in a comic book. It was just Superman from the DC property.
right.
Um, that was all said and done. Okay, I'll accept those 2 packs. Okay, now we go to the next series that came out. It was let me think. It was Hawkman versus Stratos, and it was Aquaman versus the Blue Merman.
I mean,
Now
why would you do that to Stratos? What did he do to deserve
well, I
getting that kicked by Hawkman?
I get it. You had the two flying Birdmen versus each other, and then
Yeah,
and then you had
I know.
then you had the Seek guys,
Yeah,
versus.
you had to see guys facing him.
I get
Yeah,
it. I get that. Now, moving on again. Let's move on to the next batch that they came out with. It was Supergirl versus oh boy, I'm
Shira or
drawing a
Tila?
no.
Sounds like that would be the match.
Who?
Shira or Tila sound like they would
Shira.
be the
It
match.
was Shira.
Sure.
It was Shira
What
versus versus Supergirl, and then it was
happened?
also oh boy, I'm drawing a blank here. I just had it all in my head.
That's okay.
Oh man.
We get the basic gist of it.
Anyway,
They were kind of pit similar against similar.
well, yes and no. My gripe is that we never got a Batman figure to go for this 2 pack, and what I would like to think is that who do you think might have been up against Batman? Now,
Um,
who would you pick to out of the
Fidor,
who?
Fidor would be a match. You could have not Spidor, Webster. Damn it.
Okay,
Uh, I have Spidor on my mind because he's for sale for like $40 at this local shop, and I want to buy it, but I don't have the money right now.
oh, well, Santa's coming in a few days. Maybe he'll bring him for you.
um, yeah, I haven't been good enough for Santa to give a shit. Uh, the let's see. I think Webster would be good. Another good matchup for him. Back then, this was before the DC versus Masters story arc. But after that, I would say Man at Arms actually
Yes, that
would have
that
been a perfect match. But
yes.
before that, he would match up good against Cyborg. But then again, so would Trapjaw.
Cyborg's already a DC guy.
No, I'm talking about uh, Man at Arms would match up against Cyborg.
Okay. Yeah.
Pre-story, but after that, I believe he would work really well against Batman because he's kind of an Eternian Batman in that story.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, I would see, I would put Batman versus Man at Arms for the mere fact is that they're kind of like on top of things when it comes to like fighting and detective work and stuff like that. Gadgets and stuff. But I do see what you're saying with the Cyborg. Cyborg is pretty cool. That's not a bad Cyborg versus Man at Arms. That's not a bad match.
No, I don't think it's a bad match at all because, I mean, granted, Man at Arms is not a cyborg. It's his suit, right? But it provides the same type of transformations and abilities.
Right.
And now, before anyone starts flipping their crap on me, going, "Oh no, you don't know anything," I'll admit I don't know a lot about Cyborg. So please, don't shove this up my rear end, okay? I just say at face value, they seem like they would fight well against each other.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I would. I also, I'd like to see maybe Batman versus Hordak, if possible.
Batman versus Hordak.
Maybe, it's just throw
What
it out
did
there.
Hordak do to you? No, I'm kidding. It's hard to come up with anyone that can really match Batman. I mean,
that's the only thing. Like I'm really grateful that when they made the DC Batman in scale with the classics figures, because I mean I'm not a fan of Superman, so I can care less. I mean we have them.
yeah.
They did come out with Superman later. But when they made the
Did they ever come out with the Lion-O that was supposed to be in scale?
Well, yeah, they came out with him a couple of months ago. I
knew that they delayed it.
Yeah, no, he's out. You could have bought him today on the Matty sale, I believe.
Oh, no. Like I said, we're stretching thin right now. Anything I ever buy is always from my money I get from my advances on the road because I don't like. I mean, we kind of live hand to mouth.
Okay.
So, but the with Batman, he's a hard person to really. If you're going with Filmation, right? No one matches Batman. There's no match for him. But if you go with the original storylines and where they all came from, like back in like during like with the bunch of miniseries they did for DC and all that.
Okay.
Triclops. Because if you remember, Triclops was found fighting demons in another dimension and murdering them.
Yes. Yes, in the original mini comic, yeah.
If I recall correctly, and Skeletor was so impressed that he actually had to pull him out and bring him to his side because he was so awesome.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's pretty much, yeah. I mean, I would that would be a pretty. Good. I mean, that'd be a decent matchup too. Again, I mean, if you go moving forward with Triclops, 2000X, he was the inventor for Skeletor gadgets again, blah blah blah. So that would be a.
He did some of that in Filmation, I think, if I recall correctly, but it wasn't.
No, like that was he was. That was more 2000X.
They completely okay. Well, I couldn't remember. You know what I'm saying? I don't sit around watching the old shows. My son does, so I don't get all the refreshing memories back.
Yeah.
But I know that in the 2000X, they really tossed him under the bus and just made him pretty much a big sissy.
Yeah,
Except
he was a character to me that always should have him and Trapjaw should have been more on their own.
Yeah,
that to me, they just have the qualities of someone who could make it on their own and not under someone like Skeletor.
And this brings back another topic.
Okay.
All right. Last week I was talking about He-Man getting busted in the mouth and bleeding, right? About his invulnerability.
Right.
And we got a really good response from a guy named Pseudomonas03. Okay. I'm gonna read it and then I'm gonna respond. Is that all right? Can I do that?
Go.
Okay. He-Man is not invulnerable like Superman. This is what he writes. In the 2000X comic series, he was bleeding when Triclops hit him in his leg with a sword. Read Marvel at NBC He-Man Volume 1, Issue 3, find out. He gives me the link, so all I have to do is go to the link and take. And he did indeed get the shit stabbed out of him. And my first impression was, yeah, but this is Triclops.
Okay.
My mind was Triclops, who could very well take it to He-Man. This guy was maybe not as strong as He-Man and tough as He-Man, but he was fast and he was good. And so my mind was like, okay, yeah, I could see him having a sword that could cut through someone who's invulnerable if he kills demons, you know? But then I had to remember, wait, that Cyclops is from 2000X, different kind of Triclops. Different guy, completely.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right. If Triclops can wound He-Man, then Monkian can, with much more raw power, and he can do it for sure. Generally, the problem with He-Man's powers are that they are inconsistent from canon to canon and from story to story. Now, I want to stop right there, and that is the problem that me and you were discussing. You remember this?
Yes.
About a month ago. Me and you were talking about this. And the discussion went that, you know, it's really hard to gauge He-Man's powers, right? And because it's never the same. I do have problems with some of the things he says, like He-Man is not invulnerable. Well, a lot of people forget that He-Man started out with 2 chest straps. Those were his actual powers. One, he was completely invulnerable to all damage, no matter what the source. And the other, he was like stronger than anyone else in Eternity. Now, that's where my mind goes when I think about He-Man being invulnerable, is that he's always had a level of invulnerability until you get to some of the stories that are written that really don't appreciate or pay attention to his powers, right?
Okay.
Then they changed it up because of the power sword, and you know, they kept changing it and changing it and changing it. There's no set story. The only thing that's consistent is the power sword, which came out much later, and with the cartoon, and the Prince Adam thing. I mean, you know, if you remember, originally Prince Adam could take without being He-Man, could take a barbell and twist it into a knot. I mean, you know, he would go to these bars knowing that he could whoop anyone there and pick fights with people just to beat them up. That's canon. That's story from back then. Now, here's my thing with He-Man's invulnerability and why I feel like it is not inconsistent to say that He-Man has been knocked out before, which he has.
Yeah, and then he gets turned back to Adam.
No. That's only it. That was only from the A few times that's happened, but then they retcon that, especially in the new comic that come out with the Eternity War. When he got knocked out, he stayed He-Man.
Well, that's
He could
because
go to sleep, wake up He-Man.
right. He was there was no Adam anymore. He was just
Right.
He-Man. Right.
Well, no, he could still turn back to Adam if he wanted to, but you couldn't take the power away from him. Now, in the new comic strip, it's a little bit different, right? Now, when I look at this, I look at this from a more scientific, I don't want to use that word because I'm not a scientist. I'm not even that smart. And that is, anybody who's ever worked on cars, ever done reconstructive surgery, ever lifted weights, okay, can tell you that without the bone structure or the frame to support the power of the muscle or engine or what have you, it's useless. If you take a car and you put a huge engine in it, it will tear itself apart unless you reinforce the structure of the car.
And modify it.
Yeah, you have to modify it. You have to reinforce the frame because it will twist in half. If you do not have the bone strength, the tendon strength, and the muscle density to push a moon, it doesn't matter how strong you are. Trying to push that moon will turn everything but your muscles into jelly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We already know he's strong enough to survive in the vacuum of space because he went up there and pushed the moon. Now, granted, it was a dumb story because let's be honest, what would happen if you try to move the moon? But, you know, ignoring that part, if you can pick up a mountain, you have to not only have the strength to lift that weight, but the strength to handle the leverage around you. And you also have to have, like I said, the framework involved in order to do it. It's how they kill, okay, like medieval knights, when they came out with hardened armor, they quit even trying to penetrate the armor. They just hit it with blunt objects and with spikes. And the reason they did that was not because they thought they could penetrate the armor, but because of transference of force. You could kill a guy and his armor would be completely intact. And then you'd have a brand new shiny piece of armor without a scuff on it because you couldn't even scratch hardly hardened armor. The only way to do it would be to get up underneath the armpit and go in through the hair or stuff like that. And you literally could turn someone into just jelly inside that armor.
Okay.
Pour them out, and you got yourself a new suit of armor. Well, the same deal with the human body. Okay? You can't just be strong. And that's where I come from on this.
Where? What do you mean?
From the standpoint of, in order to be that strong, you have to be also that invulnerable to handle that strength.
But
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but are you saying that He-Man isn't strong enough?
No, I'm saying that he is invulnerable with his strength. Otherwise, he would just, if he tried to pick up a boulder, sure, his muscles could do it, but his bones would shatter underneath the weight. If you've ever lifted weights and you lift too much weight and you haven't been keeping up with your bone strength and everything, you can feel your bones hurt. I know I get that on my forearms when I lift weights. If I lift too much weight, I feel my forearm, the bones hurt a little bit. Now imagine that if you're trying to lift a mountain. Your bones would just turn to dust trying to support this.
Yeah, but if you're talking about He-Man, there's a lot of magic being involved
That's true.
in the whole situation with him. He's just not like a strong guy picking something up. There's magic involved with him,
Uh-huh. And
and
that's what I had thought you would probably say. Was that magic, you know?
right. It,
And to a degree, that kills anything I have to say on the subject, right? I mean, really, you can say it's magic. LOL, shut up, Josh. And it would be perfectly legit in saying that. And I don't have a problem with that per se. However, how do you how do you justify the magic in saying that when he punches something, like punching his house out of the side of a mountain, which he did, not in the filmation, but this happened then, in the pre-filmation. And he doesn't absolutely shatter his hands doing it. You know, I know you've broken your hand punching something before. I have.
yeah,
It's not, doesn't matter how strong you are. If you hit something too hard, you shatter your hand.
yeah.
And it's okay, we can go magic, but that same magic that gives him the invulnerability to hit that mountain and not shatter his hand would give him the invulnerability to withstand this kind of thing. However, I'd also like to point out a monkey can saw down a tree with that mace. That's a lot of invulnerability to take that mace square to the face, and all you did is a little bit of blood.
So what are you saying? What you saying that Monkey can hurt He-Man, or what?
I'm saying that he shouldn't have been able to.
He should have been able to.
Right. I feel it is my opinion that he should not have been able to hurt him unless he had a specially enchanted weapon.
But you don't have just a regular
We don't
mace.
know that. Well, we don't know. I mean, he could have had it enchanted. They go with magic all the time.
Yeah.
Why couldn't it have been enchanted? Look at just like Triclops' sword. Could very well have been from an advanced technology and been enchanted because he killed demons with it. And I kind of merge everything together a little bit, you know.
Well,
I know that.
Yeah, I mean, it might, but I don't. It's to me, it's never been said or told that way.
It's never been told or said or explained.
So that's the only thing that I have a problem with, is that it's never been. Nothing's ever went that way with Triclops' weapon or Monkey's weapon. Now,
right.
If I get the next comic book this week, and it says that Mum-Ra enchanted the mutants' weapons, okay, then I would say, yeah, okay, that's how Monkey's weapon got stronger, or how he inflicted more pain than he should.
Right.
But to me, I can't ever recall or recollect that Mum-Ra or Skeletor or whoever powers to be mutants or evil warriors' weapons,
right.
to
agree,
make them more powerful to inflict pain.
But that's how I justified it in my head without going, this is bullcrap, and just hating everything, you know?
Yeah.
And like I said, it's an opinion. It is an opinion. Everything I'm saying here is in no way, shape, or form fact.
Right. And you're completely entitled to that.
Right. It's how I feel like it could be justified. Because here's another thing, right? Everyone wants to talk about that comic where Superman, quote unquote, beat He-Man. You know my opinion on it. Getting knocked down in a fight and getting back up a panel later does not constitute a loss. Now, if you can take a full-on roundhouse punch from Superman and all it does is knock you down, I'd say there's a level of the invulnerability there.
Yeah, but
DC versus MOTU comic from 20 years ago.
Yeah. See, the thing is that wasn't defeated. He-Man wasn't beaten. But
I wouldn't even say he was beaten.
No, but the thing,
I honestly feel like it was he got knocked down and then Superman flew away. That is not beating someone.
Right. Now,
and that's how
if say let me see if I can say this right. Let's say that Masters of the Universe has been out since the 1930s, like Superman was.
Right.
Okay. Now, and if Superman wasn't, if the roles were reversed, and Superman was being revealed for the first time in a comic book ever, in a Masters of the Universe comic,
Mm-hmm.
it would be the same. You wouldn't have a newcomer flat out destroy.
At that point, He-Man wasn't a newcomer.
Yes, he was. That was
No,
just
he was not. He'd been around a while by the time that comic came out. Not like 30 years, but he'd been around a little while. Everyone
no,
knew who He-Man was.
not necessarily, because it was pre-filmation, so not everybody knew who he was. It
Let me
wasn't
check
it wasn't out there.
Let me check it. I want to check before I make that statement.
Yeah, the comics, the DC Comics Presents was before He-Man became big. And with that being said, you can't have a newcomer come and beat the flagship of the company. It's just gonna turn the whole world upside down, and that's why
July 1982. So yeah, you're right.
so that's why they couldn't have He-Man come out and destroy him like everybody wanted to.
And really, yeah.
Now, if they would decided to do it now, it could be taken for it could be taken literally because it's 30 years later that He-Man and Masters Universe have been around and the stories are told and the
And if they
characters.
did not, during the DC versus Superman line, pandered to these fans who just cannot stand Superman ever losing, and just had a real fight between the actual Superman and the actual He-Man, and I come out and said, "Oh, that was just a clone."
Yeah,
I just
it's
beat that crap.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of that either. It's just to me, if they would do it now, it would be better.
Right.
Because you have both characters are well established, and it could definitely work now. That's why last year or the year before, when they had the DC versus Masters of the Universe crossover or whatever miniseries,
right, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
that was really well written in my eyes. I thought it was pretty good.
It was up until they went, "Oh, that's not Superman, LOL," because all that does is open up for all these Superman fans to go, "Well, he never actually beat Superman." Well, every implication I had was that this thing had every single power. Even someone even said that he might have been overpowered with magic, but I don't know if that's accurate.
Who's that?
I don't remember who it was I was talking to.
No, I know. Who are you talking about? What character? I'm sorry.
I'm talking about Superman.
Okay.
In the DC versus He-Man thing.
Right.
It was a exact clone with all of his powers, all of his memories, and none of his morals.
Yeah.
And that's the way I took it. And but everybody else is all like, "Well, no, that's not Superman. He didn't beat Superman. It's just a clone," and blah 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 blah. And I'm over going, everything I read indicated to me and gave me the impression that this was basically Superman who didn't have a problem kicking your rear end.
Okay.
And he even gets kicked in the chest, and he thinks he's Superman. And he says, "You're strong. Good. I'm tired of holding back." So he thinks he's Superman at this point. I mean, he even fools Batman.
No, it's definitely Superman in that comic.
No, that is a clone.
No, what do you have?
Yes,
You got to give me solid evidence because that's
no.
Because then you got to say everybody else is a clone on the DC because they accept him as Superman.
When they what happened was when He-Man just got tired of his crap and shoved his sword through him, which was the greatest panel.
I gotta reread that.
Yeah, you do, because when he did that, Superman doesn't bleed; he disappears, and they think it has to do with the magic versus Kryptonian physiology just disintegrating.
Okay, yeah, I gotta reread that.
Batman figures out, like the next comic, that this wasn't actually Superman because of a bunch of things that only Batman would figure out.
Right.
And then, as it turns out, the real Superman was being held in another dimension by Orko and the Trollians, because Orko enslaved all of his people. Remember, Orko went bad, and
Oh yeah, he was that
and
guy.
he
That
right.
whatever his name is.
Well, he couldn't get out. He was He was stuck there. There was nothing he can do. Apparently, all these Trollians were stronger than him.
Right.
I mean, they were holding him there, and Superman couldn't get out, and He-Man found out about it and went and got him. Right, and Superman couldn't hurt any of these things because they were magical. So He-Man gives him his sword and says, "Don't try to call on the power of Grayskull. Other than that, I'm pretty sure you'll be all right swinging it." Basically, if you don't want to get turned into a crispy fritter,
right,
don't try to go and call on the power of Grayskull because you'll just get turned into dust. Well, so I know that was a clone. However, my point of view here, and from everything I read and understand about what Skeletor would have done,
right.
so Skeletor wanted him to kill Superman so that he could pit them all against the Masters of the Universe so he could do his job.
Yeah.
Well, he knew that if it was the real Superman, it probably it might have gone awry. So he had to have something he could control. And also, wants to keep the real Superman because when you think about it, this dude is still the strongest person in this current universe. Why would you not want that guy to experiment on, figure out, and control? There would be no reason not to do that for him. This is Skeletor we're talking
about. Right.
And like when Skeletor shows up on the Justice League ship and just takes everyone out in like 3 or 4 panels, everyone's done. Only person who gets away is Batman. Only reason he gets away is because I want to say it was Man-at-Arms and He-Man were in the Batcave because Constantine had brought them there and killed Airglow that was chasing him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he'd have been done too.
Yeah, they would have been toast.
Yeah, but this is Batman we're talking about. He got away because he's Batman.
So I love Batman. There's always thinking ahead.
Yeah, I like Batman. I'm not a massive fan of Batman, but I do like him. And I give him his due.
Yeah, he's a great character. They really put a lot of thought and effort into him.
Well, like this comes around full circle to what this guy said. There is no canon for He-Man. Every time they do the story, they do a new one. They don't build on the old stories. There's no experiences that build up to create He-Man who he is today. It's always arc done.
They do that because they change the storyline, and when they change the storyline, they have to change the He-Man to fit the storyline. So that's why I think they do that. Other than that, there'd be no reason to change anything.
Well, look at New Adventures. Dirt. 15 episodes of that show for you.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you,
I want to talk. I want to talk about New Adventures. We'll do that the next episode because we have a few minutes left, and that's a show. That's a show that there's a lot to be said about. So let's save that for next time. I know we said that last week that we just wanted to talk about other things, and we're not going to be able to cover that. But let's save that for next time. So put a mental note of what you want to say, and we'll go to the plate with that next show when we come back from New Year's.
I just wanted to thank Sudaman as 03 for his very thoughtful responses.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
And I wanted to thank him for, just being cool. I mean, everything he wrote, I was there with. I agreed with him for the most part.
Right.
Just the way I see how invulnerability and strength works, I can't consolidate with magic. It's not the only thing there. And if you have the magic to make him that strong, then you have to have the magic to support it. That would by default make him invulnerable.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem. All of us use the word invulnerable wrong. We're not talking about invulnerability. We're talking about resistance, because Superman isn't invulnerable.
Okay.
He is highly resistant. He's very difficult to hurt, but he is not invulnerable to damage.
No,
He has
if you take him away from the yellow sun, you can really hurt him.
Not even that. You don't even have to do that. Under the yellow sun, he has been beaten. He has been hurt. He has bled. He has died.
He has
been
but like what you say is that his resistance is high.
Yes.
So, but if you took away the yellow sun,
right,
the path of resistance is even less.
Yes. And here's the thing: he also has that force field thing that builds up around him for that felt like they kind of ripped it off the He-Man, but whatever.
I don't even
before everyone
know
rips me apart, whatever. It did feel like they ripped it off of the original He-Man with his ball.
They might have.
Forget you guys if you don't like it. He didn't. Oh, I'm gonna get all kinds of comments on this. It just but you got to deal with that, and then you have to make it through that to his skin, which is also strong enough to support the muscle to move a planet. So that the density of his muscles and bones are such that you have to be so strong to get through that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's part of why magic is. It's not his vulnerability. It's not his weakness. It's a vulnerability.
Right. Okay. That makes that.
He can take a sword. That's why He-Man can take that sword and run it right through Superman, because he's strong enough to do it, and that sword is magical, making it so that he can get past that first barrier.
Okay, that makes sense.
Past the one thing that can make it through that force field is magic.
Right.
Now, if I'm wrong about this, because I have talked about this in length to people who are just die-hard Superman fans. So he's got that force field that builds up around him. Sword can make it through because it's pure magic, no problem.
Right.
Then you have to deal with hitting someone with the density of a neutron star. It's still not easy.
Yeah. It just doesn't. It's not. I mean.
So if somebody came up and said, well, he has the natural resistance or invulnerability, let's just use that word, of Superman, but he lacks the force field, making him less invulnerable, I could agree with that.
Yeah, well, basically, it's just the way you word it, I guess. That you had to say in the right terms.
I guess so, but that's how I see it.
Right.
Then again, like I said, I'm not a scientist. I'm not even that smart. This is just how.
Yeah. Well, it's a good way of thinking. So, do you have any last things to say about that before we close this podcast out?
I just want to thank everybody who gave input. I talked with Joe Amato about this also, because Joe Amato is one of those people who I really respect his knowledge base, and he generally is very grounded about it. And I talked to several other people. I got a few comments here and there about how, He-Man's just strong. He's not, tough. And I'm over here going, moving along,
Yeah, that comes with the territory.
Yeah. I just want to thank everybody, Joe Amato, and I wanted to thank this other guy from the pseudo. I can't say his name, but this guy from the podcast, he listened to it. He was interested enough and invested enough to discuss it, and I wanted to thank him too.
Yeah, that's
because
cool.
we would not have had this topic.
Yeah,
I mean, we were talking about this topic and having it, but it would not have gone this in depth.
Yeah, that's why we love to hear what you listeners have to say, your input, whether it's good or bad or whatever. Just let us know. With that being said, Dirk, can you give out the phone number, please?
I certainly can. If you'd like to call our 24-hour voicemail line, it's area code 217-953-4025.
Thank you, sir. With that being said, we are going to probably be taking the next week off, so we'll probably be back after New Year's so we can all enjoy Christmas and stuff with our families and not worrying about getting tied up with the podcasts and things like that nature. So, Josh, you got any last words, brother?
No, I already said my last words. Thanks, everybody.
All right. All right. Just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody out there. And thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for coming to Masters of the Galaxy Facebook page. Please check out popculturenetwork.com and hemanworld.com, the All Encompassing Facebook page, Masters of the Galaxy Facebook page. And until next year, rock on, people. Thanks
Merry
again.
Christmas, everybody.